Hungry.
The guttural growl rumbled from the berserketh's hulking chest. It was enough to shock her into some form of self-preservation. Screaming once more, she jerked against his hold. "Don't touch me!" He dragged her closer anyway, his jaw opening wide as her ankle lifted upward, his fangs flashing as the heat of his breath rolled against her skin. Her breath seized in her lungs. This was it. She was about to be impaled on vicious fangs. Except there was no pain. Instead, the firm, wet tip of a tongue stroked over the bone of her ankle.
Sweet.
A shiver of pleasure rippled across her skin, bumps pebbling on her flesh as her nipples went tight and achy. Confused, she fought it.
Ripe.
This time, the tip of a fang scraped along her arch. As if he'd tapped the sensitive bundle of nerves at her core, a rough pulse of need shot through her. Powerless to resist, she moaned. He growled in response. A new sound erupted from her, a soft, trilling purr, one she'd never made before. It vibrated from her chest as naturally as breathing, as naturally as the urge to wind herself around the berserketh and never let go. More than a noise, it was a plea, a secret language that spoke of yearning, of surrender and submission, of connection and belonging, as if a part of her had been waiting for him. Two separate entities, total opposites, destined to form a single harmonizing whole and restore balance to the galaxy, to themselves. But that was madness. Omegas and alphas were prey and predators, not allies, not complementary parts or equals, and this one had dragged her into his lair with the promise of death in his stare. Yet somehow, that didn't stop the siren hum vibrating from her chest and calling for him once more. Her weakness frightened her, almost as much as the beast himself. "Let me go!" She tried in vain to dislodge his grip. He growled louder, his hold on her ankle tightening as his fang dragged up her calf, bringing more pleasure, more heat and need. Her breathing hitched.
Mine.
Her captor's tongue flicked out again, trailing over the sensitive flesh behind her knee as he pulled her even closer. "But please, I don't understand what you want." She shook her head, tried to shake off the stranglehold of lust and the growing certainty that whatever her captor was after from her, it wasn't any longer instant pain and death. But that scared her too. Twisting in his grasp, she spun onto her belly and at the same time kicked out, trying to use the leverage to dislodge his grip. It didn't work. With a roar, he tugged her to him, her belly sliding against the ground, her hide covering hitching upward, as he used his body to part her thighs and spread her wide. Before she could even fight back, his big hands landed on her hips and lifted, setting her on all fours, moving her at his will.
You.
His voice was a low, possessive rasp, as his nose trailed over her spine, his fangs lightly scraping over her flesh.
I want you.
She surged forward, only to be checked in place, one hand at her hip, gripping tight, while the other wrapped around her throat and locked her in place. She stifled a moan. Even terrified, his display of dominance made the fever inside her burn hotter. He seemed to know it. Slowly, deliberately, he forced her upper body downward until her right cheek was pressed to the dirt, her neck pinned to the ground, her bottom lifted higher.
Submit.
He gave her no more warning than that. His hand slipped beneath her covering and cupped her mons, a warm shock of rough heat against her womanhood. She cried out. His thumb tapped the sensitive bundle of nerves. Her legs shook, her bottom tilting higher, opening to his touch before she even realized what she was doing.
Yes, good little prey.
He growled low.
Soft and pretty.